And good evening, Elite Dangerous Commanders, and welcome. I've got my hat on wrong. Um, good evening, and welcome to the Elite Dangerous Lore Tour Expedition Formidine Rift Lost in the Darkness stream, embracing the space madness. How are we all this evening? Yay, there we go. Everybody's here. 07 Commanders, 07 Commanders. Good to see you. Good to see you. It's good to be here on Thursdays. Yes, the Ragtag Fugitive Fleet. I've seen that going on Twitter today. That was been great fun. So I might actually put together a little image with that. I'm feeling mischievous tonight. So the mischievous things may occur. But there we go. So how are we all? Are we all ready for crossing the Heisenberg Bridge? That's what we're going to be doing this evening. Actually, it's going to be quite. We're actually going to be moving around because we have places to go. Because we are actually pretty much in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing to do here because there's nothing there. I kind of deliberately chose this system as being the back end and beyond. It's only its location of its interest. There's nothing else. So we've got to do some moving around. So there we go. So anyway, so I can see a few ships hanging around. I am in game right now at Wimbledon Common. Probably only the British people on the stream will understand the significance of Wimbledon Common, but. Yeah, we've got to tidy up from there. We are in the system is the P. Well, I don't know how on earth you pronounce this. PHA ARIRGHG-YC0 system. So let me type that in the chat for anybody. This is what it looks like. This is where we currently are, but we will be moving, and you'll have a chance to intercept. Us. There we go. That's where we are. So in that system, there are many fleet carriers, underground or overground. Yeah, I see what you did there. It's quite a long way out, Mintopia. We're about 11,000 light years out, so I'm not sure you're going to make that in 2 hours, unless you've got a very, very fast ship, which maybe can do the Kessler run in 3 parsecs or something. So there we go. But that's where we are at the moment. So with no further ado. Let's get in there. So lovely to see you all. This is the penultimate. Stream about the lore about the Formidine Rift. So we're coming to the end of our voyage, which is a bit sad actually. But here we are. Here we are at the fleet carrier. Now I'll go on record. I was a bit sceptical about these fleet carriers. And we'll talk a little bit more about what's happened this week with various things in the game anyway. But I've become very fond of fleet carriers in the last few weeks because many commanders are bringing their fleet carriers out on the expedition, which is awesome. And it's only fair that I spend the first few moments of the stream just saying welcome. But actually, before I do, there is a disclaimer. I need to give a disclaimer. Okay. Now, you may remember last week my computer suddenly went offline, and I was talking about the club. We've got to be very careful talking about the club because they do zap people's computers. But my computer went offline last week, and thanks to a bunch of people on Twitter, some of you are probably on the stream, we diagnosed what the problem was, and it appears that my PC has an inadequate and possibly failing power supply. So if the stream abruptly stops, it'll be because of that. Okay, I had a shutdown. My computer completely goes offline. It seems to be power related. So I will come back as fast as I can, but just in case I get rudely interrupted, that is why. Okay, a new power supply is on its way. Will be arriving tomorrow, according to the delivery thingamajigs, which is much more powerful and hopefully much more up to the job, which should fix this problem. At least I'm very hopeful it will fix this problem, but not tonight. It's not here, so I'm dicing with death. Okay, will my power supply hold together for the evening? Fingers crossed, it will. So if I go offline, if the stream disappears, I will be back. Give me about 3 or 4 minutes, and hopefully everything will reboot and will be good. So all of those sort of things. So thank you to all the folks on Twitter who helped me out. It was all very good. So yes, I bought a compatible power supply. I did check that out. It's more powerful, but it's the same make. It's just sort of an upgrade, and it also gets rid of some of the wiring that I don't need. So it's all good. But tomorrow is when I get to fit it. So Fingers crossed for tonight. So anyway, so back to the game. Back to the game. In the system map, in our beautiful system, I don't know how you pronounce it, Furag, something. We need to rename these systems, don't they? There is one planet and lots of fleet carriers, as you can see. And I'm parked outside the Wimbledon Common, okay, which is a very British named fleet carrier. We have the Alethea, we have the Zero Gravitas, we have the CRV Nightwish, we have the Remember Salome, particularly like that one, obviously very, very good. We have Wimbledon Common, which is where I'm at, the Absolution, the GSV Guru Meditation, the Araxis Prime, Samba du Sargentelli, the Tanilorn, the Lady of Fate, very good bit of lore there around the Lady of Fate, which we talked about earlier, and the Emperor's Revenge. So fantastic. That's what I need, is a Guardian power supply for my PC. Actually, it's got this kind of weird blue glow, so maybe it is. Maybe that's the problem. Okay, I've been reverse engineered. Now, where are we? Well, we are out in the black. Okay, we're quite a long way out. Now, we're in the olden days, we were ridiculously far out. Okay, ridiculously far out. But today, you can get to this location without too much trouble, because you can upgrade your power supplies and your jump range and everything else. But this, well, actually, we're over here. So let's click in there to start with. That's where we are. We can see some people en route. Ooh, I've clicked on the wrong one. Click on the fuel star. Come on, over there. That's where I want to be. That one. Go over there. You can see quite a few people are hanging around in this system. Now, this is quite a long way from home. So we're in this sector of the galaxy here, right literally on the edge of the official Formidine Rift. You can see we're literally on the border. In fact, we're kind of actually, are we in the border? It'll tell us, won't it? Where do I look that up? Is it? Does it tell me the sector? Maybe it does when I jump. Okay, I'll look that up in a minute. But anyway, I think we're in the Formidine. It's a very, very knowledgeable tour guide, as you can see. Drew, can you invite me to the private group? You need to friend request me. So if you can do that, then yes. I don't have any friend request there. Right, so I can see progress. Well, yes, Cyberdammy, send me a friend request. See how you go with that. Yeah, you should be able to follow us in. Now, we're actually heading today for this place, okay? We are going to go to, as you can see, I've got the hyperspace route plotted. We're going to go for this sector. This is our end goal, okay? This is the end goal. We're heading for Saradi JX-FC0. This is the location. This is the end point. What's my commander name? Well, oddly enough, my commander name is Drew Wager. Just so I don't forget it, okay? So look up Commander Drew Wager. The clue is up here, as you can see, the name. Commander Drew, with a space between the two W's, to be fair. First name, last name. So that's nice and easy. Commander Drew Wager. Just look me up. You can find me. This is where we're going, though. This is 2,662 light years away from my current destination. This is where we're going to be heading. This is the end of our expedition, and we're going to explore that. Next week, because that's the final end. So hang on, let me type this into the chat. Saradi JX-FC0. Okay, there we go. Welcome to the Formidine Rift. To the right, you'll see all sorts of terrifying stuff. I like it. Yes, there are no exits to the safe alert. Now, why are we here and what are we doing? So let's just do a very quick recap. We've been flying out from the core world, which is back here, or the bubble, as it's quite often called as well. And we've been travelling out, looking at a few things and chatting about the lore and various things about the Formidine Rift. The Formidine Rift today is this quadrant of the galaxy. It wasn't always named like this. This map that's inside Elite Dangerous today wasn't in the game at the point when the original explorers came out of here, so it's much, much easier nowadays. You can't get lost. And generally speaking, the area between this spiral arm here, you can just see it slightly lighter, and this spiral arm here, this gap in the middle, is the Formidine rift in the lore. Okay, so whilst the sector is about right, actually the Formidine rift is mostly the rift, the gap between the two spiral arms. Now, in between the two spiral arms, there aren't very many stars, so navigation gets difficult, particularly if you've got a low jump range. Okay, now bear in mind today you've got frame shift drives that have been engineered, you've got Guardian FSD boosters. You can easily get a ship with 50 light years jump range without really working too hard, 60 if you push it, and even more if you really, really optimize your ship. Back in the day, when this part of the game was explored, this area of the galaxy, jump ranges were in the 30 light years kind of range, and that makes it rather a lot difficult. Okay, a rather lot more difficult to do that. So, right, I'm getting a few credits for this. Let me just see if I can sort that out. You're in the friends. You should then be automatically added to my private group then, Cyber Army. So you should automatically get in. If I see it asking me for permission, then I'll obviously let you in. But it's not saying I need to do anything at the moment, so that's all good. So yes, anyway, that's where we are, and that's where we're heading. There you go. So Unholy Demigod, mine gets 75 plus. Okay, so that's a massive jump range. That's really, really good. So you know, that is. Back in the day, this was much more of a challenge. And the reason we're here in this part of the galaxy, rather than having gone straight across from where we were, which is back over here, we could have gone straight there with the modern day jump drives, okay? But back in the day, 3-4 years ago, when this part of the galaxy was explored, that route was not possible. Not to the jump ranges of the ships. There are not enough stars in this axis here to get across the rift. So navigation was difficult. So explorers had to find a way along the edge of the galactic arm here, and then they found this route, like a secret pass across the barren wasteland, which is the rift, in order to make the travels out to the Zurara sector, which is basically in the middle of nowhere. There's virtually nothing there. We're retracing their steps, and that's the reason we're doing what we're doing today. So, and for those of you who don't know what the Formidine rift is, well, where have you been? We've been doing this for months. The Formidine Rift is an area of space in which there were some legends left in the original lore of Elite Dangerous when it was first published. I wrote some stories, 2 official books, Reclamation and Premonition, and inside the first one were clues that led players out into the darkness to say there's something weird out here. Maybe it's worth investigating, and various clues were in the book. Various clues were put into the game, into a what used to be a quite exciting, or at least sometimes exciting, news feed in the game called Galnet, and the clues led us out into the darkness, into this area of space, and weird things were going on out here, as we discovered last week. There was some strange conspiracy going on to do weird and wonderful stuff out in the Formidine Rift, but we can't answer that question until we get to the destination, and the destination is the Zurara sector. So we're going to move in that general direction tonight. So tonight I'm actually going to do a bit of travelling, so if you want to stay with me, plot a hyperspace course to the Zurara sector, and that's where we'll be going. But let's just get a sense of where we are first. So I'm just going to click back into the core worlds, because I quite like doing this. So if I find Sol, where is Sol? Why can I find? There it is. It's in there somewhere. There we go. There's Sol. So this is one thing I quite like doing when I'm out in the black, doing the exploration. Okay, I quite like selecting a target system and then just going back into the ship and go, well, where is it? Actually, it's behind us. So I'm just going to carefully. Good. By the way, lots and lots of ships out there. Hello. If you want to try and get into my instance, I'm at the Wimbledon Common right now. So there we go. Right, so there we go. That's how far away Sol is. Okay, what, 11,275 light years away. That's where the galaxy is. In the background there, we can see lots and lots of stars. We can see the bulk of the Milky Way behind us, and we're going to be heading out into the darkness to kind of do that sort of thing. So that's going to be quite cool. That's where we are. Our destination is about 2,700 light years. I'm not sure if I'm going to be going to Quade LIR. Let's just double check whether it's en route, actually. because I think I was going to use that as a waypoint. So I'm just trying to remember where it is, because we can use that as a rendezvous point in the game. That is a very good point, because that was my original plan. Let's have a quick look at where that is. Cody Ayer. Got these names. LRAB 52-0. Is that? Oh, that's over there. Wow, looks that's a long way. Okay, some people have got that far. Okay, so actually that's. Why was I going over there? I don't know. I can't remember why I was going. Why was I going there? That's not on the route. I thought it was halfway across. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I really apologise for that. There was some logic to that, and I can't remember what it was. I'm not sure. But I want to head for the Zurara sector. Okay, so apologies for that. I thought there's I'm pretty sure the Heisenberg Bridge runs from here, but maybe it doesn't. Let's just. I can't see the stars. Maybe star density. I'm just trying. Maybe if that is where the bridge starts from, that's where we should run from. Really. I mean, maybe it is space madness. But yeah, the Heisenberg Bridge is this area of space across here between the spiral arm and the Zurara sector here. So let's go to the Zurara sector, because we want to be there for next week. So we're going to spend all our time in that system next week. I can't add a week. No, I'd love to add a week, but I can't because I'm actually going to be on holiday, so I won't be here. So we need to complete the mission by the end of next week. Did I? Right. So I did send it. I did send it as an expedition waypoint. In that case, we should go there. We mustn't break the EDSM. That's not fair on players. So let's go there then. We'll take a slightly more circuitous route. Let's go here. How many routes is that? It's not too far. Not in my ship anyway. So here we go. Right. We're gonna go here. The Quadi, whatever it was. So let's try that. So yeah, let's go there. Let's do it properly. We'll go with the advertised thing. We're going to the Quadi thingamajig. We won't cross just yet. We're going to move a little bit further along. So let's get on the way, because we've got a long way to go and a short time to get there and stuff. Okay, so that's where we go. All right, we've got slightly the wrong system. Hang on a minute. I can't remember where I initially set it up. This is the problem. You set these things up months ago and then you forget. That's all right. Don't worry. Well, at least it's slightly pronounceable. Quaidea, maybe? LARB 52-0. There we go. Try that. Yes, it's found it. Okay. Not a problem. Right, there we go. Right, so let's hyperspace jump there. Look how easy it can do it, you see? It'll be... There we go. Right, so we are off. Right, let's make our move. Onwards we go. How many jumps is it for me? 22. That's all right. I can do that. We'll be done. We'll be done. Right, so let's... yeah, other people who want to... I'm planning on doing a bit of flying, but thank you very much for the assistance there. Let's get this ship underway. Now, I do want to talk to you about some of the background. Obviously, we always talk about... Oh, can you believe it? The sun's in the way. Typical. Right, let's just get the frameshift drive charging. Off we go. So head for the what was it called? Quadi sector again. So there we go. Now, while we get all we get charged up and everyone gets moving, a couple of things about the game. Okay, so we've had an update last week, and there's been a little bit of a clarification this week about Galnet and CGs and interstellar initiatives and story and so on and so forth. Well, for those of you who don't know, back in the day when Elite Dangerous started, there was an in-game news feed called Galnet. You can still access it technically in the game, but what it would do is give you usually 2 or 3, sometimes 4 times a week, it would give you a bit of news about the galaxy. It would say, this person's doing this, or there's been some political unrest over here. And Blue Tunnel, yay! Come on! There's 23 jumps to go. We have a tank full of hydrogen. Oh, well, yeah, sorry. I'm in Super Cruise. Right. So catch me if you can. Off we go. Let's engage hyperspace. So Galnet was an in-game news feed. Okay, Galnet was an in-game news feed. It would provide. It's a text-based system, but it would provide you with news and stories from around the galaxy. So in Galnet, you would hear about important systems that were invaded, important systems that would fall into famine, and there'd be all sorts of political shenanigans going on about who was doing this to what. People got married, people got divorced, people had wars, all sorts of stuff. Okay, so it was a sort of newsfeed. Now, sometimes in those articles were clues and stuff that would indicate that there was something going on in game, and sometimes they wouldn't be. Okay, so some of the articles were kind of flavor text. Is that the right thing? But some of them would relate to things that were in game, particularly when the power play update for Elite came out. There were then characters in the game that you could pledge your allegiance to. I mean, you can still do it; they're all there. Galactic powers, you can still do that. In fact, look, you can still get to Galnet News. It is on the UI, but unfortunately there's nothing in it anymore. And so in the early years of Elite Dangerous, Galnet was a sort of news broadcasting thing, and you'd get news from different places. Sometimes it would compete with each other as well, because you get different factions talking about events from their perspective. So sometimes you get the Imperials going, well, the dastardly Federation is doing something in one of our systems, and then you get the corresponding Federation articles. So those scummy Imperials are doing this, that, and the other. So occasionally it was quite good fun, a bit of polemics in there as well, and it would give you a sense of stuff that was going on in the background of the galaxy. Okay, then the power play figures also emerged, and if we have a quick look while we're here at the power play figures, you can see that they're a bunch of different people. We've got people from the Alliance, from the Empire, the Federation, the Empire again, more of the Empire, independent ones, Federation, and so on and so forth. So you different people, and they've all got different agendas. Okay, so the idea was these people were asking you, the commander in your spaceship, to pledge your loyalty to them for whatever reason. What did you get out of that? Well, what you got out of it was basically being an enemy to everybody else on that list. So that was a small downside, because you get chased around the galaxy by these people, but you could unlock special extra equipment that was only available to that particular thing. That was basically the benefit for playing that part of the game. The most popular one, arguably, for reasons that probably aren't all that surprising or difficult to work out, was this young blue-haired lady called Aisling Duval. And she would give you, after you pledged your allegiance to her for about 3 weeks and delivered lots of pamphlets, she would give you a special shield generator called a prismatic shield, which does have some advantages. Okay, so that, and of course, no obvious other reason for pledging your loyalty to Aisling Duval at all. Nothing about her appeals in any way, shape, or form. So anyway, those are the sort of choices that you had, and they all had different advantages. The problem was, if you pledged your allegiance to one of them, then the others tend to take a bit of a dim view of it, and if you swapped around, that made your life even more tricky. But Galnet would give you stories about what these guys were up to. So Aisling Duval was having an affair with Denton Patrius at one point, and then there was a leadership competition in the Empire for the throne of the Empire. We actually now have technically we have an Empress of the Empire at the moment, but you'll notice if you go to an Imperial station, it does still say Emperor, because she wanted to be known as Emperor, which also saved Frontier from repainting all the space stations. and they are, there's a bit of family intrigue and other stuff going on like that. So there was a bit of flavour to the background, okay, and there was a reason for pledging your allegiance to one of these guys, and you could watch their antics in Galnet, and from that you could decide, did you like them? If you were a player who liked the lore and the characters, then you could sort of see the sort of people they were and decide whether or not to pledge your allegiance to them, okay. And they're all a mixed bag, actually. None of them were particularly good or nice or anything like that. But they had some character, okay. They're not some. They had some character, and it gave a little bit of colour to the Elite Dangerous universe. Okay, up until that point, you had some fairly nameless factions. You had the superpowers of the Alliance, the Empire, and the Federation, which we've gone into in great detail on the lore stream. But there was a bit of character to it, and there were also off-camera initiatives going on. So there were other people like the ex-president Halsey, whose story has never really been wrapped up. There were rumours of the Thargoids in deep space, and there were rumours of other things that you could go and investigate. The antics of and how Colonia came to be. All of those things were in Galnet. So Galnet was your way of finding out what was happening in the game. And when I was writing the books for Elite Dangerous, Galnet was a thing, and I was able to put clues that related to what was in the book and also in the game into Galnet as well. So there were clues for people to follow, all those kind of things. So there was a lot of content going into Galnet, 2 or 3 stories a week, and that was what the game was like from the back in the year 3300 to about 3304 and a bit, I think, is where Galnet started to fizzle out. Now, there was a bit of a complaint from the players, to be fair, about Galnet. Now, Galnet was only ever text, okay? It did get an audio supplement, which again is still in the game. It doesn't unfortunately have a great deal to do anymore, which is a bit of a shame. But Galnet, the problem with Galnet was that there were a lot of articles in it, 2 or 3 a week, as I've been talking about, which actually adds up to quite a lot over a few years. And some of the articles would lead you to places where stuff was actually really happening in game, but quite a lot of the articles didn't. Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah, there was some stuff in 3305. Okay, that's fair enough. But quite a lot of the articles were literally just that. They were flavour text. Okay, they were flavour text, and the problem was that you could read that flavour text and go, "Oh, I'll go to the XYZ system, and I'll go and investigate." And of course, you'd go there, and there wasn't anything there. The game, whatever was in that system, there wasn't anything actually there in the game. And you can, I have some sympathy with that, because I think if you see something in the interface of the news of the game and you go there, then if it's not there, or there's nothing special there, then that's a bit frustrating as a gamer. Okay, so if you see something saying in the XYZ system there's a civil war going on, and ships are being interdicted left, right, and centre because of they're looking for something, whatever it happens to be. You go there, everything's normal. You're kind of like, well, what was the point of me spending time reading that article? So I get that criticism. The idea behind Galnet was, of course, to add some flavour to the Elite universe, because we're in a universe where there are several trillion people, okay, spread across thousands and thousands of star systems. There should be stuff going on, okay. So I do have some sympathy for that particular thing. Some of the Galnet articles did have things in there. So CGs, the old community goals where we'd all assemble to do a task, those were advertised in Galnet. Some reports on Thargoid activity were reported in Galnet. So there were things in there that you could go and do some things, and there were some quite dull statistics about various other things as well, being kind of mixed into all those sort of things. Now, I did use Galnet as part of the work that I did to allow players to discover things and find things in the game, but it was always quite tricky. To be frank, the game itself didn't lend itself to that sort of storytelling very well. The problem being that there was the dev effort to put interesting things in the game, such that you could then write a Galnet article about said thing, seemed to be extraordinarily high to me. The sophistication of the sort of mission types and the artifacts and the things that you could put in game to build story content around was quite limited. Missions were initially, they couldn't branch; they could only go in sequence, which was quite dull. You didn't even have a pronoun parser, so you couldn't do gender-based stories in the early days, which was a bit irritating as well, because you couldn't put much variety into the story. So there were lots of things, and in order to inject content into the game, you had to do it on a server tick, which meant that the story could only move on every Thursday. It's a bit like the Thargoids, which is a bit irritating. So there were some definite dev/tech limitations in what the game could do in terms of putting content in, and that made it quite difficult. So after a while, Frontier took the decision that they would not put things into Galnet that couldn't be found in game. Okay. So they did say to us, the amount of content in Galnet will drop, okay, inevitably, okay. We're not, the fluff pieces, the flavor text pieces will be going in favour of only Galnet content, which actually reflects things you can actually do in game. And everyone kind of went, well, that sounds okay. Is there going to be more stuff in game then for us to kind of investigate and stuff? And the promise, it wasn't quite. Yes, but the idea was that overall there will be less content in Galnet, but more meaningful content, which seemed like a reasonable trade-off, I think, to most of us. What sort of happened since, though, is that virtually no content has appeared in Galnet. In fact, I can't remember exactly when it was, but earlier this year, Frontier basically said to us, or the community managers, to be fair, and they always have to break the bad news, poor fellas. They basically said to us, actually, Galnet is going to be on hold. Okay, it's going to be on hold now for a while. And so if you go into Galnet now, there is nothing in Galnet at all, other than there was one single article, I think, that came out quite close to the fleet carriers, but it didn't seem to be related to much else. So, yeah, and if we go into Galnet now, let me just get this star out of the way. Because there's a big one. There we go. If we go over there, if we look in Galnet today, what you can see is that the user interface is still here, but there is that's it. Okay, there are two articles in there, one of which is a power play update, which is automatic, and the Thargoid activity report, which I also believe, I think, is automatic. So this is just automatically generated stuff. So there's nothing in there anymore. Okay, there are no events apparently happening in the galaxy. And Frontier's explanation for this is that they put all their writing team working on content for Odyssey, which seems okay. I assume we don't know much about Odyssey at the moment. We've got a trailer. Could be there's going to be loads and loads of cool missions and text interfaces and dialogue and goodness knows what story content in there. We just don't know. We're going to have to wait and see for that. That's not until next year. And so the downside of that to me was that Galnet was quite a good vehicle for explaining some of the lore. Okay, so historically there have been articles on how hyperspace worked, early colonization of space stations and where the Empire came from and all those sort of things. A lot of the stuff that players want to, well, how do I find out about the lore of Elite Dangerous? Well, you'd kind of want there to be an archive in the game that allowed you to go and review that sort of stuff and maybe review it. Unfortunately, it isn't there. And to me, a little bit more of a shame is that, I say, you go into Galnet News, you can't even look back at the archive. So there have been 6 years of Galnet content, but I can't get to it in the game. Okay, there's no way to get to the historic Galnet, which is a bit of a shame. There's nothing there. So I don't know if that's a limitation on the way they programmed it or whatever, but you'd hope that you could scroll back through the old archives, but there's nothing there to scroll back through, which is a bit of a shame, because there's some quite good content, some quite good stories. Even if they're historical, at least you could catch up. Okay, so that's that's a shame when all that content is there. And I worked out roughly how much content it was because I was curious. Um, you know, from when Elite Dangerous began to when Galnet sort of stopped, you've actually got somewhere in the order of about 300,000 words. Okay, and that is almost 3 novels worth of content was written for Galnet. Some of those additionally were player submitted contributions, so there is some player stuff in there as well. I put some stuff in. There's the official FDev stuff, etc., etc., etc. And it's a shame that none of that content. I mean, it was all done. It's all there somewhere, but it's not visible in the game. You can get to it if you go to, I think it's galnet.community.elite or something like that. You can find it on the internet. It is possible to go get it, but it's not very easy to read through. It's not in a particularly structured way. There we go, community.elitedangerous.com. But it's not very easy to navigate your way through, and it's quite hard. There's no search facility or anything. You can't normally expect to do that. So it's not all that easy to access, which is a shame. But there was a lot, okay, about 3 novels worth of content written for Galnet, which is a considerable bit of investment of time, okay. So a lot of work was done. There were a lot of stories told, a lot of adventures out in the black, and crucially, players and their factions and their organisations, everything they do kind of to enjoy themselves, would base their own stories off stuff that was happening in Galnet. So if there was a civil war in the XYZ system versus the ABC system, then you might get factions who would connect to that particular news event and base their own origin stories off it. So it fostered your own story. Frontier has talked about the personal narrative, but you need building blocks underneath to put a personal narrative on, and that's what unfortunately at the moment has disappeared. The same thing. And we had high hopes for this, but again, this is another feature which is currently dead in the water, the codex. So the codex would look like a fantastic thing, okay? And we can see here we are out in the Formidine Rift. But it had a knowledge base, okay? So you could go and look up stuff about the lore. Now this looked really, really good. You can get the basic, very, very high level summary of the lore of the Empire, the Federation, the Alliance, etc., the Thargoids, okay? But these were put in the game at a point in time, and alas, have never been updated since. And they're just text, so they're real bare bones little bits of the lore. So it's worth a read, okay? But nothing new's been added to these things. They're just they're static, which is a real shame. So for whatever reason, there's been no impetus from Frontier to put ongoing content in those parts of the game. We don't really know why, okay? We don't really know why, and I'm a bit skeptical about their official explanations for why, okay? Now, it's worth me saying, now there are a few people, they mentioned it on the chat already, that there are a lot of community submissions. So, okay, the biggest and the most famous is probably inara.cz. So loads and loads of commanders write their own stories there, and some of them are absolutely epic. So it's worth going to have a look at those. Those are really, really good. I quite often read those. There is a new initiative on the forums called ION. I'm trying to remember what the acronym means. Interstellar something network. And that will be a sort of possibly weekly, I think it is, planned to be a small little kind of Galnet-esque thing that's going on to provide some content for people flying around in their Orion network. There we go. Thank you very much for that. So check that out. That's worth checking out. There is, of course, the Galnet Digest, which is a weekly YouTube kind of podcast with news and happenings from around the galaxy. Obsidian Ant obviously does a lot of content as well on YouTube about what's happening in the kind of meta game of Elite Dangerous. He tends not to do so much lore stuff, but more actually what's happening in the game. So all of those are good ways to find out what's going on, but none of them are official, and none of them are in the game. So they never have the veracity that the in-game stuff used to have. Basically, in terms of the law, it was always sort of stated, unless it's actually visible in the game, it's not really happening. So it has to be in Galnet, and it has to have some artifacts in the game to be genuinely real. And no matter what we do, us players, us fans, have no mechanism to officially put anything into the game anymore. There's no mechanism to do so. But Ion is really, really cool. So that's very good. And Sagittarius Eye, of course, yes, they are fantastic. I've written a few articles for them in my time as well. Really, really high quality, kind of magazine-style production of stories for Elite Dangerous, and they sort of lorify everything, which is very, very clever. They have a sort of rule whereby they everything must be in game, no matter what it is. So you can't step out of you sort of can't look at the fourth wall. Is probably the best way to describe it with Sagittarius Eye. It's always in game. They do some spectacular composition and artwork for it. So if you haven't come across Sag Eye, where have you been? But it's always worth checking out Sag Eye. The quality of their production is astonishing. So I've written a couple of articles for them, and they even edited my articles. So I was like, okay guys, quality is really good, excellent. Quite happy with that. There's some fantastic stuff in there as well. So those guys are really, really, really good. Lots of other podcasts. The Elite Week. I apologise for anybody's podcast that I have forgotten. Elite Week podcast. Yes, I have seen that one. That's very good. There are a lot. Okay, and I can't criticise any of them. The fans of this game have done a fantastic job of supplementing the lack of content that's actually in the game, and that's the bit that annoys me. Okay, it does annoy me because whilst I love all the fan-generated content, and long may that continue because it's the lifeblood of the game, really. It's a shame that Frontier's been unable to embrace it more effectively in the game itself. Okay, now there are a lot of complications with that, to be fair, because Frontier, is a publicly traded company, which means it has certain responsibilities in terms of its IP and all that sort of stuff. Okay, that puts it in a slightly tricky legal position in terms of ownership of IP if it publishes something within its computer game or on its websites and because any third-party content it does that with, it technically has to own the content or sub-license it or do clever things to it. There's NDAs and all sorts of stuff. It gets complicated. There are hurdles to cross in that regard. Okay, they're not insurmountable hurdles, but they are hurdles that need to be considered. Frontier could open its APIs for Elite Dangerous to allow third-party submitted content to be populated in lieu of Galnet. Okay, how much vetting of that content would it have to do? Well, that's tricky, it's got to pay some attention to those sort of problems. Now, as I've said, that is a challenge, but it's certainly not an insurmountable challenge. Other companies do this. Okay, so not doing it is not really an excuse. Okay, to be frank, to cut to the chase. Okay, other companies managed to do this. Those problems have been dealt with and could be dealt with should Frontier wish to do so. Okay, now that is really the nub of the matter. Okay, that is really the nub of the matter. They've been back on the stream apparently just in the last hour or so. I haven't watched it yet, to clarify the position of Galnet. And basically what they're saying at the moment is we have no plans to bring Galnet CGs or interstellar initiatives back into the game at this point in time. Now that's they're concentrating on Odyssey, so okay, they're concentrating on Odyssey. Well, that's fair enough. It's their company, it's their game. They get to decide where the resources go for it. And they've told us that they're concentrating all their writers on Odyssey. I'm a little bit skeptical about this one because they said they were concentrating all their writers on fleet carriers, and there isn't that much text in there. Although it takes a bit of time to write it, so it doesn't quite ring true. That's my beef with it. I think they're being a little bit disingenuous with us because they can quite happily, and they do, quite happily punch out um, paint jobs for various different ships, on a fairly regular basis without too much difficulty. So now the skills required for writing are not the same as for generating paint jobs, but paint jobs are work, okay, and those are happening whilst we're waiting for Odyssey, my sort of slight cynical interpretation of that is, well, paint jobs sell for money, or at least arcs anyway, and are about player stickiness and all those kind of things. And Galnet content and text is a much more fluffy thing in terms of income. Now, I might be being unfair, but Galnet is a cost. Okay, it's a cost of in-game lore, in-game content that is there for flavour. Is a kind of overhead. Okay, it's a kind of overhead for a game because it keeps the existing player base engaged. But if you're totally cynical about the money, that existing player base has already paid for the game, unless you're on a subscription model, of course, which we aren't in this case. So you kind of wonder if they've got we've got their money. We don't need to cater for them, and that's being horribly cynical. I don't think they think like that too much, but I suspect somewhere along the line there's been a little bit of a bean counter conversation in terms of where do we put our money now. As we know, our elite player base at the moment, concurrent player base, is at an all-time high. Now that's something you can't really argue with. You can see that on Steam, you can see that on other figures as well. Whatever Frontier are doing in terms of the actual number of people who are playing this game today, whatever they've done over the last few years is actually the right answer. If your objective is to maximise number of players and copies sold of the game, regardless of Galnet, regardless of everything else, okay? So, from that perspective, it's a success. It's a blindingly good success. More and more people are playing, more and more people are engaged with the game, and that's despite the fact that Galnet has disappeared and everything else. So people like me who are bemoaning the fact that there isn't any narrative and story and lore in the game, there are plenty of people who agree with me, but in terms of the actual success of the game and the revenue that's coming into Frontier, narrative and story and lore is actually potentially an irrelevance, okay? Because it's clear that people are not playing the game for that. At least a lot of people are not playing, okay? Is it because of lockdown? That will have been a contributor to it. Is it because of fleet carriers? Is it because there's easy money to be made, or at least there was easy money to be made in mining? I don't know. I'm not a games designer genius. But it is record players right now. Okay, record players, and that's not because the Galnet's gone missing, and it's not because the spectacular lore and narrative of Elite Dangerous, because at the moment it's virtually non-existent. So somebody in Frontier may have just made the decision, well, we just don't need it. It's not part of our plan for the success, and clearly the numbers demonstrate that our explanation for that is correct. We don't need Galnet, we don't need lore, we don't need narrative, we don't need story in the game, because people are playing it because of, and they've got the facts, okay, they've got the facts as to why people are playing, and they can probably work it out far better than we can because they've actually got some data. So I don't know, okay? I don't know. Now they are being a bit vague about it. They're basically saying it's not on the roadmap. What does that mean? Does it mean it's coming back at some future point? Does it mean that it will return with Odyssey? Does it mean it will be replaced with something new when Odyssey comes? Does it mean... does it see something else? It's because of my lore, too. Of course it is. Record player numbers because of me. No, I think we could probably dismiss that one fairly quickly. That's the thing. Now, it's their game, right? They're the devs, they're the people who run it, and etc. 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 So they're going to do what they're going to do. The thing is, what frustrates people like me, I think, here is there's so much potential, and there always has been, to be honest, so much potential for awesome storytelling and awesome narrative and stuff. And the Elite Dangerous universe, as I've said many times, has a lore that dates back to the year 1984. It has its own timeline of all those centuries. It has political factions. It has wars. It has weird shenanigans in deep space. It has aliens. It has abandoned civilizations. All that sort of stuff. Okay, the sort of stuff that every sci-fi franchise is based upon in some way, shape, or form. It's got all that stuff, and yet we're sitting here in a galaxy of trillions and trillions and trillions of people, and nothing. This is like, for those of us who like to role play a bit, and those who like to get stuck into the lore of games, it's kind of just head-scratchingly confusing. My son is playing Destiny at the moment, and he's just sitting when he's playing a game with YouTube on the other screen, listening to the lore of the game and digging into it more and finding out what the things that he's doing in the game refer. So there's lots of there's some activity there, and a new lore is coming out every week, and he's update. I have no clue what he's talking about. How many jumps left have I got? 2. Actually, I'm almost there. Blimey, that didn't take long. And so, so all of this sort of stuff, other games manage it. Okay, so other games manage to bring in player-generated content, and yet there seems to be a huge reluctance overall to allow other people to create content in Elite Dangerous and for it to stick. I thought the lore one, there's all sorts of stuff, but the only way for players to find out about it is outside of the game, by going through YouTube and clicking on the Discords and going into Facebook and Twitter and all these sort of other places. That's very, very difficult. Now I think they hope to have the game procedurally generate some of the news based on what the background simulation was doing, what Power Play was doing, but I think that was a bit of a lofty ambition. It never happened. So we're now left with the fact that they don't seem to be willing to create content for Galnet. They don't seem to be taking the background lore and expanding upon. There's nothing officially new happening in the Elite Dangerous universe. There's loads of player stuff, but the history of the galaxy has stopped. There is no new lore. There is nothing. I'd love to do another lore tour next year, but there's very little point in me doing one, because I'll just be repeating everything that we've already done, because there is no new lore, which makes no sense in a galaxy this big and this complicated. Here we go. We've arrived, and there's loads of people who beat. Look at that. I love the flickers of light in frame shift. Look at that. That looks awesome. All right, so we are here. So we have made our rendezvous point, so that's good. Let's just check out what's going on in the system. Is there anything happening? I don't even know what the system was. It's just a waypoint. So there we go. So from here, now that we've made it, that keeps all our EDSM folks happy that we've actually got to the right place. We are going to set course for the heart of the Formidine Rift. Okay, we're now crossing the Heisenberg Bridge. So I saw the latest update with No Man's Sky. That looks that looks interesting. So I will go and check that. I've got No Man's Sky. I might do a stream on that at some point. But my problem is, as much as I like No Man's Sky, and I do actually quite like it, and much as I like all the other games that I've played, this one matters. Okay, this game is important. This is a proper game. And look at people strung out. Look at that. That looks fantastic. Everyone trying to keep up on the ships that aren't quite as big. So anyway, so you need to go there for your EDSM. Those of you who are doing it. I'll hang around here for a few minutes. Let everybody catch up. Let's go. Is there anything? Is there anything in this system actually that we can use as a rendezvous point? I don't think there is, other than this planet. There's nothing here, is there? Literally nothing. So well, I'll hang around in space here for a bit. Let me just drop from Super Cruise. I'll switch on the wing beacon, although it's going to be quite hard for folks to rendezvous with us in the middle of nowhere. We'll just hang around here. I've got some friend requests. Hang on, let me sort those out as well. There we go. So those of you who are in my wing, you'll be able to. Does that stop me? There we go. Let's try and get that to 0. There we go. Yay. So yeah. Did I switch my wing beacon on? I think I did. Yeah, I did. So anyway, so those of you who are catching me up, there we go. Somebody's already here. Somebody must have seen me drop. So that is, that's kind of where we've ended up. Okay, there is no new law to talk about, which is really frustrating because this universe has been running since 1984 with adventures and characters and goodness knows what sort of stuff going on in space, and yet here comes everybody. The narrative, the law has stopped. We don't know what happened to President Halsey. We don't know what are the power play characters all doing. All that stuff has stopped. It's just disappeared. It's like the news network has been cancelled. So yeah, it's just time for a cup of tea at this point in the game. It's a British game. It's and this I get it. I'm well adjusted enough to know that it is just a game, and I know that Frontier are a business and they need to turn money for shareholders and da 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 da. I know all that. Okay, I get all that. I've been a businessman myself. Okay, I've worked in many organisations and risen to quite a high level in them and had to make executive decisions on this budget versus that. I get that. Okay, I get all of that. But this is not just a game. Okay, and the reason it's not just a game is it's got heritage. Okay, it has heritage. It has previous installations of the game going back nearly 40 years. Okay, so this thing has history. It has legacy. It has all sorts of stuff in it. So it isn't just a game. Okay, it's a franchise. It is a I'm a writer. I'm supposed to have the words. It's a universe. Exactly, it's a universe. It is a place where people go. Okay, it's a virtual reality environment. All those things, and it's very important to so many of us. It's a formative part of our lives. It's a place we go to. It's a place of refuge. It's a community. It's all of these things. Okay, now that is not to be trivialized. Okay, it's as important as as it is. Football fans will support their team. Okay, come hell or high water. Good or bad. And the people will form around that community, and it's meaningful. People get very patriotic about their country sometimes. I personally don't get that in terms of the country, but I understand the need to associate with people who have similar interests to yourself and get alongside them. That's why these things are so important, okay? That's why these things are so important. And when we lose a bit of the heart and the soul of something like this, we feel a great sense of loss, okay? So when the core content, if you like, the essence, the soul of the game suddenly evaporates and makes the experience of playing far less visceral, far less as if there's something going on, it loses meaning, and that makes us feel, I think, vulnerable, makes us feel sad, makes us feel isolated, makes us feel emotionally unsatisfied. And that's why I think a lot of us get so frustrated with the lack of narrative and lack of lore when all the potential is there. And whilst I don't think that Elite Dangerous is a community fostering social tool, it does serve that purpose for many of us. Okay, it's something that's important in our lives. It's I love Star Trek, I love Star Wars. Those things are important to me as well. On my wall here I've got pictures of I've got a model Enterprise behind me on my shelf. I have an X-wing. I have the original Enterprise, to be fair. The original series one. That's the one that's important to me because I'm old. Okay, but all of those things. Okay, they're part of who I've become. I'm a science fiction fan. I like those things. They're important, and this game has that in spades. Okay, this game has that essence, it has that lore, it has that background, it has, oh, well, do you remember the thing that happened 20 years ago and 50 years ago? And what about that stuff that happened back in the early formation of the empire? All that sort of stuff. And people like me can go into a convention or a pub or online or in a Discord and debate for hours totally and utterly pointless things about the lore. Because it's interesting, okay? It's interesting. And we want to compare ship stats and all those kind of things. So all that sort of, I haven't actually got an X-wing parked in my backyard now. I've got an X-wing on my shelf. It's a small one. All that stuff's important, okay? And that's why I think we keenly feel the loss of the storytelling, because this game kind of needs it, okay? This game is based on it. When the game first came out back in 1984, it was based around the story. That's how it was introduced to us. That's how it was sold. When you open the box, you got the story, okay? And the story basically gave us all the stuff. We're still talking about it today, nearly 40 years old. Raxler, the Dark Wheel, okay? Lave, the Cobra Mark III. All of those things, the Thargoids, they all have their origin in the original lore of the game all the way back then. And the game's now playing wacky music at me. So all that stuff is that old, 40 years worth of background lore, and to just switch it off at this point in the game seems callous almost to me. It just feels like, why would you do that? Why would you do that when it's so rich and it's so impressive? Elite has a lore that's almost as old as Star Wars. It's up there with Star Trek. It's up there with Battlestar Galactica. That's how far back it goes. It's not some brand new show, okay, that's just arrived. Like No Man's Sky, it has some interesting lore in it, but it doesn't have the legacy that Elite does. Not even things like Wing Commander go back as far as Elite does. Okay, so Star Citizen, great, but doesn't have the legacy. Doesn't have that legacy that Elite does. It's going back. But I think maybe it literally just comes down to bean counting. And if it does just come down to bean counting, colour me disappointed. Colour me very disappointed, because that's not embracing the legacy of something that you've created. Now, if I was in David Braben's shoes and I had a game that people loved, okay, game that people loved and cherished and was formative and and he knows that players think that, then I would be so excited and inspired and wanting to be incredibly creative with the game in terms of its story, as well as the fantastic things that we do have, the ship graphics and the vistas and the general environment. There's few games that equal this in terms of just having the experience of flying in a spaceship. So all that sort of stuff. Why don't you want to make it better? Why don't you want to make it epic? I don't know, and it does bug the hell out of me, really. But because there's so many of us who can kind of see it would be so much more epic. Okay, and I can't argue with the player numbers. I can't argue with the revenue that Frontier is getting from Elite Dangerous, because it seems that they're doing a fantastic job in terms of the money. Okay, and market share and EBITDA, which is the tax way of measuring the successful company, all those sorts of things, right? All good, all up, all the charts are great, but the game is losing its soul as a result. And that's, for somebody who's been invested in the lore and the story of this game since they were a teenager, is so disheartening. And that's one of the motivations for the reason I did this lore tour, is because I just wanted to celebrate what we did have. and kind of introduce all the new players to say, this is how cool the game used to be. And yes, it's great now, but it's losing its soul at the moment. And we hope it will come back. We hope it will come back with Odyssey. And fingers crossed, lucky rabbit's foot, touch wood, etc., that it does come back with Odyssey, that we get the soul of the game back. But at the moment, it's too quiet. The universe is dead. There is nothing new happening in the game officially. And it's been left to the players to sort of sit there and kind of wonder about what happened. But I don't know. So I don't really have an explanation. I think it's bean counting, because I know, and this is the bit that does wind me up, is because I've seen this from the inside. Because with Premonition, the second book that I did, I was able, and I insisted on doing this because I knew the way that the players wanted to play things. I insisted on saying I want some Galnet articles every few weeks to push the story along in game, so it has that verisimilitude. Okay, and so I wrote, and I was in a full-time job at this point. I wrote many Galnet articles. I've got the complete list on my hard drive. They're still there. I wrote many Galnet articles with overlapping narratives and in-game events and so I know what's involved in writing Galnet. Okay, I know what's involved in writing it, editing it, making it sensible, and then handing it over for it to be uploaded to a website and put into the game. It is not that difficult. Okay, and anybody says, well, what about this, what about that, what about this? Well, you've probably got a point, but it's not that difficult. Okay, and I bet you it's cheaper to write a Galnet article and put it in the game than it is to do a paint job. I can guarantee that 100%. A good writer, and it doesn't have to be that expensive because writers are relatively cheap anyway because everybody wants the gig. If they're good, okay, you could probably hire one for 20, 25, 30,000 pounds a year. They would be able to blitz Galnet with content really quickly. Okay, so it's not a case of manpower, it's not a case of cost, it's a case of willingness to do it. Okay, Elite Dangerous has 100 devs apparently. It's priorities. What are we focusing on? For whatever reason, somebody somewhere in FDev has basically said no, we're not doing that, and at the detriment to, in my opinion, the soul of the game, and that's the that's the frustrating piece to me. So that's where we kind of are. Okay, Galnet is empty. There is nothing here. We have no news. You know, it's empty. There's nothing going on. The codex is static, and we're being told to wait for Odyssey. Well, we've got to kind of wait. Okay, well we've got to wait, right? And so you know, and maybe it is David Braben and Ian Bell's kind of vision that they wrote the game, and you know, Robert Holstock, as we know, wrote the manual and the book, and that's the holy trinity of the original Elite in my mind. But maybe Ian Bell and David Braben were more interested in just the game and not the lore and the story. But that doesn't really gel with the later games. And if you look at Elite 3, which is the third game, Frontier First Encountered, it is packed with lore, packed with narrative. In the third game, there are 5 newspapers, all giving conflicting different accounts of things that are going on. Loads of lore about, you know, what's going on in the background, and the Thargoids, and all the different organisations, and they're very rich for a game that was done in the 90s. Far richer than, in fact, Galnet appears today, or even at its height. So, Elite does have a history of narrative and lore and storytelling. It's part of the game's DNA, and yet it's been abandoned at the moment. And you know, many of the articles, I mean, it's a good point actually there in the chat. Many of the articles that have featured Elite Dangerous in the gaming press have been about the events in the game. And I know this because I ran one, and you know about the Salome event, and that got all sorts of media coverage. Not all of it positive, to be fair. Quite a lot of it wasn't positive, but it got into the press, and no, there's no such thing as bad press, right? You know, it did make the game stand out. And Elite Dangerous just isn't visible in the same way in the press, in those kind of things. You know, the fleet carriers have got a little bit of announcement, but there we go. Something on my windscreen, yes, there's all sorts of ships out there, very neatly actually, I have to say. Loads of people in the instance as well, which is really cool to see. Let's just have an external view while we're here. Yeah. I still haven't managed to get rid of this wretched drift, but there we go. I need to get a slightly more interesting paint job for my crate, really, don't I? It's a bit dull, this one. There we go, look. So loads of ships are parked here, which is very cool to see. So it is lovely to have all your company out here in the black, in the middle of nowhere, which is where we are now. We're just going to await the arrival of the fleet carrier, just because then we can all kind of party out there. Because I do want to talk about actually some of the lore. You know, I've been waffling on about the current state of the game, which isn't really what this stream was supposed to be about. But we're kind of in between locations at the moment, so it's good. So maybe we should report lack of lore on the issue tracker. That's a good idea. Let's do that. When the fleet carriers is, I think it shows up on our contacts tab or something, doesn't it? It's not showing up here at the moment. Although I might need to be in Super Cruise, I think, to pick it up. So we'll see. We'll see. Has it shown up on the system map yet? No. Okay, so it's not there. We'll hang on a little bit more. So that kind of brings us up to date. Okay. Okay, so we've got a few minutes before the ships arrive. Fantastic. Yeah, so I do think I need a better paint job. My paint job on my crate is a bit dull. I think I've just got a blue tactical one. And then we'll make our way across and we'll see how far we get to the Cyrene region. But so that kind of brings us up to date. Okay, so the game had lots of stories in it. In the lore, there are lots of background stories, lots of characters, lots of people, lots of machinations going on, politics going on, wars going on, you know, cloning going on, weird alien things going on with the Thargoids and the Guardians and all that sort of stuff. And now, nothing at all. And it just feels empty. It just feels like it's missing something. Now, I would love to contribute, even maybe on a, you know, even on a for free basis with several other people. I think we could, you know, I could easily write a string of, let's say, 30 Galnet articles, which would give the players something to do. That would be easy. Okay, for me as a writer, I could do that. You know, if I could get paid for it, that would be a bonus, you know, because you've got to eat. But, you know, it could be done. And there are plenty of other talented writers out there. It doesn't need to be me, it can be anybody. People who know and love the background lore of Elite Dangerous can contribute. And there are thousands of players who could do that. And we see their content on a daily basis on YouTube. So, you know, that's all out there, the willingness to do all those things. It's all possible. But for whatever reason, Frontier don't seem to want to engage with that, which I think is a shame. Does feel like we should have a campfire. We need a campfire ship, a campfire paint job for a ship. We could just choose somebody's ship and set fire to it. That would be a bit mean. You know, and you know, I was watching Star Trek: Next Generation. We're going back through Star Trek: Next Generation at the moment at home, and I've taken my kids through it, so they're having a bit of a giggle at some of the special effects. But I'm doing. You know, as I'm watching the Star Trek: Next Generation, I'm thinking, well, there's an anomaly there. We could have that in. We can have that in Elite. You know, there's that. You know, go and investigate the XYZ thing that's causing a weird distress call. There's a disappeared ship over here. All those things. You know, why isn't the game full of all sorts of stuff like that we could go and talk about? So, you know, all those things are possibilities. But that's where we are. Okay, it doesn't sound at the moment like Frontier's going to change. They basically told us it's not on the roadmap. What does not on the roadmap mean? Well, if we're optimistic, it means it'll be back on the roadmap at some point in time. If we're pessimistic, it means it's never coming back ever again. And somewhere probably between those two extremes is where you know, where the truth finally lies. But who knows? Who knows? We're going to have to wait. And the problem is we've been waiting quite a long time already for stuff. So, you know, it is a bit. It form the ships into letters to spell lore. Now that would be cool if we could organise that. I think that's going to be quite hard. The reason I'm doing these lore tours, right? Okay, you know, I love this game, as you've probably figured out. I'm frustrated with it in equal measure because it hasn't got in it what it deserves, in my humble opinion. And it is a humble opinion, and nobody needs to really take any notice of me. But you know, it has such a richness of stuff it could have in it, and could be visible and exploitable and readable and audible and all that sort of stuff. It's just a shame it can't. It can't reach those sort of heights of greatness that I think it probably deserves. So that's kind of where we are. Okay, that's kind of where we are. Now, have any of these fleet carriers arrived? Not yet. Do I need to be in Super Cruise to see them? I can't remember. Does anybody know? You love my hats. Fantastic. Yes, my space hat. It's my space pirate hat. Yeah, I've seen the fleet carriers. Hopefully they're arriving soon. We can just pop over there and see. Now I was going to talk. Now let's go back to lore of the Formidine Rift, because I did promise you to talk a little bit about a character in the lore called R. Okay, the mysterious R. May need to scan the system to update. Let's just try that then. I don't know if the fleet carriers are here yet though. You need to switch between FTL and sublight for the for the list too. Okay, so they're not showing up at the moment. Let me, in that case, back off very gently from my group of fellow rifters out here. I just don't want to damage anybody's paperwork. And let's jump into Super Cruise and see if we can see. Oops. Almost hit somebody's asp there. Feel free to follow me. Let's just hop into Super Cruise and see if we can see any of the. There are two in system. Okay, so yeah, so R is the topic of today's stream. So who is R? Well, many of you will already know the answer to this, but R is in Elite Dangerous for reasons which I'll explain in a moment. R is a bit of a mystery. Okay, her name is never revealed in Elite Dangerous. Okay, but she is an old woman in the time of Elite Dangerous. She actually is killed in. Oh, got a blue tunnel again. She actually is killed ultimately in Elite Dangerous lore. She is no longer alive, but she was extremely old at the time she died. Had some sort of rejuvenation technology, something applied to her to give her, particularly long life, even for people in the Elite Dangerous universe. She's lived for a very long time. Okay, there we go. I'm in Super Cruise. So, there we go. I've got the Guru Meditation. There we go. Let's head there. So, already in the system. Let's rendezvous at the Guru Meditation, which has arrived in the system. We can talk about the story of R, as she's known. Now she's an old lady. Okay, she's first introduced into the Elite Dangerous universe in the book Elite Reclamation, which I wrote. Okay, we see her only briefly. She is not referred to as R in the book. She's just referred to as an old lady, and Salome, or Kahina as she is in that book, meets her in a hospital. And she gives Kahina, Salome, the clue about the Formidine Rift. It's the first time that the Formidine Rift is mentioned in the Elite Dangerous lore, is in the book. And the book actually came out just before the game was kind of mainly available. So officially she's just called R. And the reason she's just called R is because she signs herself as R in some of the logs that you encounter, and we will find out a little bit more about that when we get to the Siradi sector, which is our final destination for next week. So here we are at the Guru Meditation. I'm just going to park up behind it for a moment while we have a chat. Let's get the right way around. I think that's the top. Is that the bridge at the top there? I think it is, isn't it? So, there we go. I like parking just so I can see over the top of it. There's quite a few people here already, actually. So there we go. There we go. Looks cool like that. There we go. Let's just make sure I'm not drifting, because that's irritating. There we go. Right. So that's where I am. People can join up around the Guru meditation as we are, as you can see, out in the depths of the. Come on, stop drifting, you wretched thing. There we go. Out in the depths of the Formidine Rift, which is quite cool. So R appears, and she is an old lady in Elite Dangerous, and she tells Salome about this place called the Formidine Rift, and she basically says, "Oh, you don't want to go out there because." It's bad. In fact, I can't even remember how bad it is because somebody's edited my memory of those events, and I don't even know what the truth is anymore. But R was quite a canny old woman. It's assumed that she was a member of the Dark Wheel, and she was also a member of the club at one point in time. And what that means is that she actually had split loyalties, and she actually left the club trying to expose what they were up to once she figured out what they were actually doing. So she was either a sort of double agent, trying on behalf of the Dark Wheel to figure out what the club was up to, or she had her own agenda on something else. But either way, she had a complicated agenda between those two kind of shadowy cabals, trying to figure out what was going on. And they didn't want to kill her, they didn't want to martyr her. So they basically sort of kidnapped her and edited her memory, so that if she did find anything out, she immediately lost knowledge, of that. And that process in Elite Dangerous is called hex editing, which is like a little nod back to what you used to do on 8-bit computers, editing hex values in the memory. So that's kind of where that comes from. Now she therefore eventually became aware that her memories were not intact, and so she would store logs for herself around the galaxy, so that if she did get caught by the club on any of her missions, she could go back and re-educate herself from her memories by figuring out places that she could go to restore what she originally knew, and then carry on from there. So she was doing this in various ways, and storing bits of information around the galaxy. But it got a little bit confusing. Even she didn't know what necessarily she knew by the end of it. And she is part of a long line of significant individuals in the elite canon. So what I actually did in the lore was, if you go back to the Dark Wheel, you'll notice there is a young lady by the name of Alicia Fields, and she was a clone. Now clones are, back in the original Elite, were actually illegal. She was actually illegal, and she was therefore an illegal citizen in the Elite Dangerous universe. She couldn't own anything, she couldn't access anything, she needed to work with somebody else, which is why the original hero of the Elite story, a young lad by the name of Alex Ryder, was starts off, and between them, Alex Ryder and Alicia Fields ultimately go off trying to on a quest for Raxler, which is where the Raxler legend and all that sort of stuff comes from. Now, because she was a clone, I hooked into this. Now, clones are still illegal, that's quite right, in the universe of Elite Dangerous. They're very much frowned upon, particularly in the Empire. But all those things are slightly dodgy in the universe of Elite Dangerous. But there is a line of clones stretching from Alicia Fields in the Dark Wheel in about the year 3125 all the way through to the present day. And these clones all have, they're kind of all backups of important knowledge in the Elite Dangerous universe. So Alicia Fields was kind of the first one, but there have been others since. Some of them have not been able to connect with the knowledge that they have, and they've kind of gone astray. And one of those that went astray was Octavia Quinton, who is the evil protagonist of the novel Elite Reclamation, who gets a comeuppance at the end. And it transpires that Kahina stroke Salome was also one of these clones in a line, and that she is not the end of that story. So there's a line of clones in the Elite Dangerous lore that stretches back to the original Elite with Alicia Fields, stretches all the way through to the modern day to Kahina and Salome, through the mysterious R, who was also a clone, and then onwards past Salome as well. Now there is another clone who's still alive, technically, in the Elite Dangerous lore. So if that story ever gets to continue, it can, because there is another clone in that line still around. So there is a continuity, and that was done deliberately to make sure that there was a connection from the original game all the way through to the present day. And if we ever get the chance to continue the story, there's a way to continue the story of the clones of Elite, which stretches back from the original game. Now, R is kind of in the middle of this, all right? So people have guessed it. So Andy Pipkin is quite on the money. That's Alessia Verdi, and she's a character you can read about in Premonition. She's had a couple of Galnet articles, I think, that mention who she is and where she is, what she's been doing. She's been very silent since, because unfortunately, with the lack of narrative and story, there's nothing for her to do. But potentially she could come back, because she's still alive out there somewhere. And rumours are that she's been recruited by the Dark Wheel, so we will we have to wait and see if anything occurs in that regard. So that line of clones, if you like, is unbroken all the way through the elite kind of canon. Now, R is kind of in the middle of that. Okay, she's quite old. Now, in order to make that work, I was a bit cheeky. Okay, so we now step into the meta lore. Now step into the meta lore. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get our expedition en route to the Zurara sector. Okay, yeah, we'll continue the story anyway. So thank you very much for bringing your fleet carriers here. But let's get moving again because I want to head in the final direction of the Zurara sector. So let's move. Now I'm going to pick a system that's not too far away because obviously it's tradition on our stream that we have to do a mass hyperspace jump on the way out. So you know, as the stream comes to a close, we will do that again today. So let's have a look on the galaxy map of somewhere that's kind of en route to where we need to be, which is quite a long way out. Okay, so that's the direction we want to go. How far away is that? It's even further than it was before. Fantastic. Let's see. There's some people already here. So how far away is this? It is probably not too many jumps. Okay, so we've got about 35 minutes, half an hour. It takes a little while to get organised, so I don't want to go too far. So let's head for this place. I'll type it in the chat. The Quai Dea. No, Dea E. SGF C14-0 system. Okay, let's go there. That's where we'll organise our hyperspace jump to, or from, should I say? You know, that's where we'll organise a mass jump from. Let's get ourselves over there. So I'm just going to nudge carefully through. Actually, yeah, that's good. Oops, sorry whoever that was. So follow me. That's where we're going next. So yeah, so that's basically how that worked. Now that's the lore. Okay, there's an unbroken string of clones that have been put in elite, okay, by the Dark Wheel to foil the club. Okay, because the club is all about suppressing knowledge. Okay, the club is all about suppressing knowledge, and so in order to allow that to be foiled is to not store information in places where it can be intercepted by the club. And so it had this sort of weird plan to allow clones to kind of inherit this information and carry on the task of keeping the club honest, or trying to follow the club. So Salome took it to extremes, obviously, because she tried to unhinge the club in public. Other clones may try and do different things. Octavia went off the beaten track, and R was successful in foiling the club for a long, long time. Okay, so maybe I typed that wrong. Let me just double check the destination we're heading to. Let me just refuel. Get that D-scan again. There we are. Where's the star? Oh, it's over there. Okay, so we are heading to where's the destination? There. Why isn't it showing up in a... Oh, hang on, I've got to go up and down. No. Why isn't my... There it is. Okay, Quai Dea SGF C14-0. Maybe I typed it wrong. That's where we're going. Quai Dea. So let's head there. So yeah, so that's the law. Now I was a bit cheeky, and you know I'm a bit mischievous. Now back in the day, okay, Elite came out in 1984. Second game, Elite 2, came out in 1991, I think, and the third Elite game came out in 1993. after 1993, or was it 93 and 95? I never get those two. Okay, anyway, it's around early 90s to mid 90s anyway. Ever since then, Elite had disappeared from an official, standpoint. There was no new Elite game. There was nothing. Okay, there were rumours of what was back then called Elite 4, and everyone kind of assumed it was vaporware because a decade went by and nothing happened officially about Elite. And it felt like the game had disappeared. Now, David Braben had been in the press every so often saying, yes, one day we will do Elite 4, but nothing ever seemed to materialise. And so from 95 all the way through to 2012, there was no Elite. There was no official Elite. Okay. Now, in the period of time between those two dates, the fans of the original games, those who could code, took it upon themselves to write sort of fan homage games to allow people to continue to play Elite, because all we had was the original 8 and 16-bit versions. And we had PCs by then with graphics cards and all sorts of cool stuff. So two particular ones stood out. One was called Olite, OOLITE, and the other one was called Pioneer. Olite was faithful to the original Elite from 1984 in its kind of concept, and Pioneer was more faithful to the later two games. Okay, and there were a few others, but those are the two kind of really, really big ones. Now, I got involved with Olite back in the early 2000s, so this is a long time ago now, it was a faithful reproduction of Elite, but with fancy, by the time 2005-ish era, shaded vector graphics and shaders and all sorts of cool stuff that of course was totally non-existent in the early days. So a really nice modern interpretation, but the same sort of gameplay as the original game, but with lots of enhancement, new weapons, loads and loads of missions, and the game was fan built, so it was free to air. And you could add your own missions into it, you could add your own ships into it, you could add your own space stations, you could add your own planets, you could add anything you liked into it. So it was an utter creative wonder, masterpiece from that kind of perspective. And people customized the hell out of it, basically. And I'm forever grateful to that fan-made game, because it allowed me to try my hand at writing again after many, many years of not doing it. So I wrote some fan fiction novels for Olite, trying to go in the spirit of the Dark Wheel from the original Elite way back in the day, to kind of basically give Olite a narrative flavour. I wrote a story, and then I wrote a sequel, then I wrote another sequel, and then I wrote another sequel, and it ended up actually tidying it all off just a few years ago by writing yet another sequel. And so there were 5 books in this fan fiction series that I wrote for Elite, and you can still go get them if you want to go and read them. They're totally free. Let me just pop this up on the screen. I found it earlier. So if you do want to read them, they're now hosted on Commander Ascorbiust's mostly aimless website. So if you go to ascorbius.com/Drew Wager Olite, there it is up in the title. I'll just copy that into the chat for you. You can go read these stories. Now, they are a little bit old. They're not nearly as good quality as the sort of stuff I write today, but they're an evolution of me. And they are Elite-esque in design. Now, they are based on the original Elite, so they feature things that don't appear in Elite Dangerous, such as talking amphibioids and cats and felines and edible poets and all sorts of stuff that was in the original Elite that is not in Elite Dangerous anymore. And I wrote them back from 2016, as you can see. 2006, sorry. But it tells the story of a rather bitter and twisted pilot who goes by the name of Rebecca, and she is a rather militaristic, short-tempered, irascible young woman. Does that sound vaguely familiar? Who goes on lots and lots of missions, has lots of adventures around the galaxy. Now, in those books, The heroes fight the Thargoids, they discover Raxxla, they just discover all the stuff about the Dangerous Universe. Because when they were written, we had no idea that Elite was ever going to come back, so we kind of just had fun. Okay, so they're not official, they are not lore. Okay, they're not Elite Dangerous lore. They're certainly treat them nowadays as a bit of fun that I was involved in. But what I did is I thought, being a bit sneaky as I am, I thought, well, Elite and the fan-made games carried the torch for Elite, the franchise, in the years where Frontier themselves were doing zero to promote Elite. Okay, so we're talking about a period from 95 to 2012, so 17 years, okay, when there was nothing official going on with Elite at all. And in that time is when the fans carried the torch for the game. Okay, now I'm not saying that Elite Dangerous would never have happened without them. That's not true. I'm not saying that Elite Dangerous owes its existence to those fans, but I am saying that a lot of the interest that was around at the time when the Kickstarter happened was because those fans had kept things going in the interim. And so I felt it was only appropriate to celebrate that a little bit. And so I put Rebecca from the Elite series of books. Now, she was a much younger woman back then. She was an elite combateer pilot. But by the time of Elite Dangerous, she's an old woman. Time has moved on. And so I put her kind of as a cameo originally in Elite Reclamation. And she appears as an old woman in a hospital who's very, very bad-tempered, but tells Salome Kahina a clue, thus passing on the lore to the next generation. Maybe they're a long line of clones of edible poets. Maybe they are. Yeah. So I was trying to do a bit of homage, and I thought I'm going to see if I can, because the content of the Elite Dangerous books was heavily censored by Frontier. So I thought if I call it out that it's Rebecca, then it might get banned. It might get cut from the book by the censors. So I thought I'm not going to call her out as Rebecca. I'm going to, for those who have read my older stuff, I'm going to leave it so that they go, I think I know what Drew's done here, but I'm not going to call it out. So basically, I let you know the fact that there's this old woman. She's very irascible. She's very bad-tempered, and she's had a lot of experiences, according to what she says in the hospital, that Rebecca would have shared, and she has the same description, of Rebecca from a physical description. So I could argue that yes, it's her, or I could argue that no, it's not. It's just an old woman in a hospital. But I, in my head, knew what I was doing. So I introduced some of the Elite canon, if you like, which is totally non-official and fan-made, into Elite Dangerous by the inclusion of this character. And then when I had an opportunity in Premonition, the second book, I expanded on that and put that into the lore, and it revealed to those who knew anyway who it was. But rather than call it out as Rebecca, I called her R. Okay, so it's the same person. Okay, it is the same person. So so Rebecca, as she's really known, is a character who starts off in the Elite era. She is a young lady at the time of the original Elite, and grows up through the experiences of all the other games in the lore. And by the time of Elite Dangerous, which of course is 175 years later, she's a very old woman. She's had lots of weird surgery and enhancements in order to keep her alive by this point. And she's right at the end of her tether by the time she's able to pass on the mantle to Salome. She was supposed to pass on the mantle to Octavia, but of course Octavia went bad and wanted Salome for herself, which is the story that gets told in Reclamation. So all those threads you can kind of connect together, and that's what I was attempting to do, to connect all of the Elite games together, and also rope in some of the fan stuff that I felt deserved recognition in the lore as well. And there's a lot of stuff actually that me and a few other people at the time were able to sneak into the lore of Elite Dangerous from the fan-made games. So I can admit that now because it's all ancient history, but at the time it was top secret, me and a few people collaborating behind the scenes saying, do you reckon we can get away with this? and sneak it in without them noticing, and so we did. And now it's in the law, so you can't do anything about it. So, so that was a bit of fun, and being a bit I am a mischievous person, so that was quite fun. But it was all good natured, we're not trying to undermine anything. We're trying to just connect everything, put all these things together. So it was good fun. So that's partly one of the reasons why Rebecca is there. So if you want to know why they a bit about Rebecca, you can go read about her in those previous stories to kind of get a flavour of who she was. So so all plausible deniability, it's all there. So and that's why my powers are. So actually, yes, it's entirely my fault. Yes, it's my fault they dropped Galnet, because they said, right, we're not having any more of that. These Johnny come lately law people trying to subvert our game. Right, I think I have just arrived. No, I've got 5 jumps to do. No, I haven't. Better get moving. So so I've sort of canonized small bits of Elite, okay, because I felt it was sort of my duty to do so, and I felt it deserved it, to be honest, because Frontier would not be quite where they are without all the fans that have supported their game in the many decades since Elite first came out. And that is a debt that they owe to the community, I would argue, to a degree. And I think, to be honest, I suspect they knew what I was up to, actually. And I think they've embraced a certain level of that sort of fun and games, kind of unofficial. They would never admit it, of course, which is sensible for them. But bear in mind that everything I wrote for Reclamation and Premonition, in which case goes in quite a lot more detail about Rebecca and the clones and all that sort of stuff, has been signed off by Frontier Development. So it's officially in the law. And Michael Brooks was the custodian of all that, so he knew his Elite very, very well indeed. So I suspect he kind of looked at it and went, I can see what Drew's doing here. I'll let him get away with a certain amount, because I didn't get away with everything. Some stuff definitely got cut, but there you go. So that's a little bit of the meta behind Rebecca. Rebecca in Elite Dangerous is a genuine character, but the reason she's there is primarily to celebrate the fan contributions to the Elite franchise in the 17-year gap between Frontier First Encounters and Elite Dangerous itself. So there you go. That's me coming clean. And to be fair to Frontier, a lot of the timeline that exists in the Elite Dangerous universe is based on work that some of the fans did. My good friend Dave Hughes, Commander Selazan, yeah, I get that right. He wrote a timeline based on all the information that was available between the first, the second, and the third games. And Frontier adopted quite a lot of that fan-made submission because it was good. It was good quality. So all that sort of stuff. All that sort of stuff. Maybe Michael did it and then Hicks edited me. Maybe that's what this weird PC crash is all about. In those moments, my PC's crashed again. What happened there? Actually, I've been kidnapped, taken to Frontier Developments. Michael Brooks has done weird stuff to my brain, carted me all the way back home, and then switched my PC back on. Altering time while he's been doing it. Who knows, eh? Who knows? So there we go. But I've done it because partly because I'm mischievous and I like doing things like that, but partly because it's just to celebrate the story of this game. Oops, don't overcook your spaceship. Because it does have such a rich set of stories associated with it. Okay, and telling stories in it that are got weird and wonderful machinations and all sorts of stuff is part of what makes this game. There's quite a lot of Elite that's just tongue in cheek, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, find some backdated post-it notes. Hang on a minute. Be like a Groundhog Day, wouldn't it? The thing is, I'm convinced now, because so many people have, FDev is a company and people move in, move out. We've seen the community managers come and go. We've seen the devs come and go, and all the devs I worked with back in 3303 or 2013, as of course it is in real life, have since moved on from Elite. Okay, so none of the people I worked with on the Formidine Rift stuff are actually working for Frontier anymore. So staff has churned in that time. So new people have come and gone from the Elite Dangerous development team. Now that's not to say there isn't the same sort of focus, but it could mean that there aren't so many people around that actually know the background lore of Elite Dangerous all that well, even in Frontier. Now some of them hopefully will, but most of the devs I've seen there are younger folk who are talented programmers and and talented designers and talented artists. But there probably aren't many people of my age working there doing that sort of stuff, who've been able to be exposed to the lore of Elite Dangerous over years and years and years and years and years and years, and just keep getting immersed in it because they find it fun. You can't just go and get that level of familiarity. Now that's probably a bit of a nightmare for them, because what it means is that there are a lot of fans out there that know the background stories of their game better than they do, and that's always a slightly difficult place. These things, these are things that do occur to games that live that long. That's ageism. Yeah, maybe it is. Yes, it probably is. Or it's anti-ageism. Is it anti-ageism? I don't know. Here we go. We have arrived. We get a nice little tune playing. So that's not to direct, because and what I'd love them to do is build on what you've got and create some new lore. If you've got new people, you've got a great foundation to build upon. So why don't you create new stuff? Not just paint jobs, okay? Go and write some new stories based on the Elite Dangerous universe. Bring in the Cobra Mark V, bring on the Crate Mark III, bring in some new ships, build new stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying the lore should be a static thing. I just think you should celebrate what you've got and go forward on it. And that's the bit that at the moment is not there. Anyway, so here we are in wherever we are. There's some planets we can hang around in. So let's go and have a look. So interesting enough, all these places have been. So let's. This one's been first discovered by an obese rodent, which is oddly familiar. So let's go into orbit there. No, that one. And we'll use that as our jumping point. I'm at her entry point. Give you a wing time to... Oh, hang on, what's this? I'm at her entry point. You can now look on me. Okay, I think you might be talking to somebody else there. Oh, that's the wing, sorry. Right, so let's go to this planet. We'll hang out there. And then we can do our hyperspace jump from that planet. Because I'm always set a challenge. I've been set a challenge this week. So lore should not be static, it should be ecstatic. Very good. So lore can expand, right? Lore isn't a static thing. There should be new stories happening all the time. Other games manage this, okay? Sorry, Blade. It was an old message. It's a problem when I go up to the text interface. Which planet? The second one out. So we are heading for this one. Whatever the second one's called, but presumably it's just B, right? But the second planet out, it's landable, but I don't think we need to go down there. There we go. Nice to see one of my discovered systems live on screen. Oh, fantastic! There we go. Okay, the wing is catching up. So there we go. So we can spend a little bit of time here doing our kind of hyperspace work. Now, what I want to do this time is I want you guys to line up, and I'm going to back away and film you remotely, okay, doing the hyperspace jump to the music, okay. So we've got music. This is important. I don't think I've analysed this planet, but there are a few people heading in here. So let's get reasonably close. We'll get into sort of scanning range. Now let's see if we can. There you go. There's a few people hanging around. So I'll drop out of hyperspace somewhere around about here. So those in my instance should be able to see my nav drop, my wake, should I say? My wing can form up on me there as well. So I think I've got my wing beacon on still. So I have got one more space actually in my wing, so we can start doing all that silly business about getting everything organised. So we'll do that next. So yeah, here we go. Look, people are immediately arriving, which is fantastic. Right, let's find a place to jump to, because we're going to kind of want to head in the right direction, which is over there. So let's have a quick look. So stars are getting a bit thin here, as you can see. So this is the star we're going to jump to. The Quade OAH C30 system. So I'm going to log on that. Here we go. Let's orientate ourselves so that we're pointing in the right direction. Loads of people in the instance already, which is cool. So start doing the the whole winging in, set it up for the. It'll be on screen in a minute. I'll type it in the chat. There it is. So there we go. It's Quai de. Is that right? Yeah. OA-H C13-0 system. That's where we're going to jump to. Okay. Yeah. So okay. So people are of the same thought. FDev are potentially fearful of hiring a writer because they might accidentally retcon or ignore previous law. Well, there's an easy solution to that. You know, they know people. They know me. They have my telephone number. They have their email address. If they wanted any kind of just a sanity check on something, then I'd be more than happy to help them out. So, come on. They know people and they can pull in community support. And big places do that. Star Wars has done that sort of thing. They've double checked things with fans. BSG have done that. Star Trek have done that to work with fans in some cases. Now they obviously retain executive control, but you can solve problems like that. So anyway, I've got some spaces in the thing that Anna Claire has just asked. So let's see if I can find you. There we go. Invite to wing. Hopefully that will get you into the wing, Anna. So yeah. So Obsidian Ant's done lore videos. I've done lore videos. The lore is out there. It's not difficult to find if you do a bit of searching. If you know where to look on the internet. Now it'd be much better if it was in the game, but that stuff can be done. So all right. So we are forming up nicely. There we go. Anna Claire is on her way, and that's awesome. So see how many people we can get in the instance again. So that's good. Poor old Michael Brooks. Now I haven't seen Michael Brooks for a while, partly because of COVID and all the conventions have been cancelled this year. But he was involved with Elite for a long time. Then went off to do dinosaurs, and hasn't done much on Elite as well. So there is the old guard, if you like. I sort of count myself in that a little bit. Myself, Michael Brooks, Dave Hughes. There are lots of Obsidian Ant. There's lots and lots of other people who know the lore of Elite inside and out, and could easily reinvigorate that and bring the lore Bibles up to date. All that sort of stuff is work, but it could be done. Right, so wing in, Commander Red Lee. Let's see if I can bring some of you in. Red Lee, there we go. Look, it's actually working. There we go. I'll invite you to the wing. See if you can grab yourself in. I'll do as many as I can. So if you're in my instance, can you wing up with people who aren't in the instance? Do the usual thing. We'll keep trying to do that as much as we can. Because actually we've got to get going. Look, it's nearly 10 o'clock. Let's get that going. Now, it's tradition on my stream that we always do a hyperspace jump. Okay, that we always do a hyperspace jump at the end to align. Now, what I need you to do is connect to. Just disable the voice comms. There we go. So make sure you got your hyperspace set to the Quade OA-C13-0 HC13-0 system. That's where you've got to go, okay? And align yourself so you're pointing in that direction. Because what I want to do is I want a nice, neat formation, okay? It's very important to me. Yeah, it's got to be tidy. I'm looking for Frank Miner. Are you on my list, Frank? Oh, it's just updated. I've got Frank Verse. I haven't got Frank Miner though. People are working their way in, which is good. Sometimes this isn't in alphabetical order, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Some familiar names on here now, which is great. I don't see you on my list, Frank. So apologies for that. Thank you, Anna, for making room and inviting new people. Appreciate that. So that's we've got quite a few in there already. So yeah, so get your hyperspace locked on to. I've got a friend request outstanding. Oh, people still coming in. Yeah, so make sure you set up on that hyperspace direction. So Jack is there. Let me see if I can get hold of you, Jack. Yeah, stick your name in and I'll see if I can find you. Stop refreshing. So annoying. Jack. There we go. There you go. Oh, you're already in a wing, apparently. Oh, Charlie H Alpha. Right. Okay, let me see if I can find that while I get a few other bits and pieces organised. There we go. Nope, you're in a wing as well, according to that. I don't know. Run away. Excellent. Okay, so good. You're on the way. So yeah, the problem is the chat lags a little bit behind, but awesome. So we'll wait a few minutes. We're going to be a bit late, I think, with the jump today. Now, it is tradition that we do a hyperspace jump at the end of my stream, just because it's a cool spectacle to watch. Now, what's been asked this time is, last time I was in cockpit view when we did it. Now, what I'm going to do is get you guys to line up, and then I'm going to go back away and watch you on the stream from an angle, okay, while the music plays. Now, what do we do with the music? Well, it's a bit dodge, but it's okay. So we're going to be a few minutes late. I'm set a bit of a challenge every week by by you guys, as to because I opened up that I was a big fan of old school MIDI music, okay, and I used to do a lot of MIDI programming and stuff. Back in the 90s, actually, with MT32 synthesizers and stuff. So I still dabble because I just enjoy it. Okay, so I have got, and many of you have seen this, I have got a little Ikai keyboard, which is useless for actually playing, as some of you have heard. But it does allow me to sequence music in. Okay, so in a moment I'm going to load that up with tonight's request. All right. And this has been a hard one. Okay, this has been a hard one. I did the old school Battlestar Galactica theme tune last week, but this week I have been requested to do a UK TV show from the 70s called Blake 7, and I thought, well, that'll be all right. And guys, it took me hours. It is not an easy piece of music to play, all right? Battlestar Galactica is dead easy, okay? Battlestar Galactica is dead easy because I've got the keyboard here. Okay, Battlestar Galactica is dead easy. It's just horns. It is it's just easy, okay? So yeah, I can play that. Battlestar Galactica is easy. Blake 7 is a nightmare. Okay. So Blake 7 was not easy. Okay, I've done my best, but it's definitely not my best ever MIDI composition. Okay, but I've done my best. I have done my best. Now it's going to be a fight, I think, for the so Wintermute's fault for Blake. So now it's only fair that we do homage to about the only UK produced science fiction show really. Everything else is pretty much American. You know, there are some exceptions, but basically Blake 7 is certainly the BBC main attempt at doing science fiction, and actually the storytelling in it's really good. The special effects are incredibly ropey, but Blake 7 did have a very cool ship called the Liberator, and you know, so you know, so that's quite so. Doctor Who, yeah, Doctor Who kind of, yeah. Doctor Who to me isn't quite a sci-fi show. Red Dwarf I will give, but Red Dwarf is it is science fiction. It's sort of it's better as a comedy, okay. But Blake 7 was trying to take itself seriously. Space 1999 wasn't British, was it? I thought it was. Or was it? Was it British? It was. I don't know. No, it's Jerry Anderson, isn't it? Yeah. Jerry Anderson's not British, is he? Pretty sure he's not. Pretty sure that's American. Anyway, Blake 7 is definitely British, and it's was it? I'm not okay. Well, it's a bit of a debate. I was going to say it's Jerry Anderson, but he's not British, is he? Is he British? Oh, okay. I stand corrected then. Well, I'm sorry. British cast filmed in the UK. Okay, right. So Doctor Who, I'll give you, but Doctor Who's kind of not. It's not really spaceships, is it? But Jerry, okay, I hadn't realised Jerry. I thought he was American. So yeah, I'm seeing my countryman there, aren't I? Definitely British. Okay, well, maybe Space 1999 is another really hard tune to play, so I'm not doing that. That one sort of goes like this. No. That's Space 1999, something like that anyway, which is not easy to play. So Blake 7 is also extremely difficult to play, just so you know. Okay, so yeah, hopefully you appreciate what I've done. So anyway, we fly out to the tune. Okay, so right, since you're all lined up now, I'm going to back away. So I'm going to turn my ship to the side. Make sure you guys are all pointing towards the jump point. Okay, so I'm just going to carefully back my ship out of the formation. If you guys can all line up so you're ready to go, right, there we go. I'm going to back away so I can sort of see you all, and then you guys can jump. Okay, the clangers. Can somebody type the jump point again? Where are we? We're in OAHC 13-0, and we're jumping to somewhere else. Okay, so these are all the ships here. You guys are the rifters, okay? There's still people joining in, so if you can join the formation, I'm going to back off a fair old way actually, so I can kind of watch. Okay, so if you guys can all line up, there we go. That's a reasonable distance. Okay, then I'm going to track to the left here a bit. So I'm at least on a parallel footing. Right, there we go. So all organised. Okay, right. Then I'm going to get myself into my external camera. And I can hide the UI. Nope, wrong button. There we go. Right. Okay, so there's the fleet. There's the ragtag fugitive fleet. Okay. Okay, now before I do that, I need to establish a jump time. Let's go for a jump time of game time. Okay, a game time jump time of 21:10. Okay, 21 hours 10 minutes is the point at which I want you to accelerate. So before 21:10, at about 21:09, I want you to charge your frameshift drives, but keep your throttle at 0. Okay, at 21:10, throttle up. Okay, and I will film you go. All right. So 21:09, charge frameshift drive. 21:10 is when you do the jump. Okay, that's when you throttle up. Now I'm gonna see if I can fix this wretched drift problem that I've got. So just bear with me, because somewhere in here, I won't take too long. Somewhere in here is the drift for this wretched external camera, and I can't find it. I did have a look for it earlier. So does anybody know where it is in the menu? So this is, that's the free camera. Forward axis. I've got, there we go. Is it mouse sensitivity? Is that the problem? I've got the axes. Stabilizer off on toggle. I don't see a dead zone. Expand the axe. Okay. Dead zone. There we go. Perfect. Thank you so much. I couldn't find out where that was. Right, so with a bit of luck that will stop it rolling. Let's put the dead zone quite big for that camera. Now will that fix it? And let's, am I in the right mode? Yeah. Well, now I've got virtually no control because I've made the zone too big, but that's okay. Right, I need to toggle the dead zone down a bit. That's all right. Thank you very much. I couldn't find that. I find that really confusing. Right, let me just tweak that dead zone down a bit because I've now overdone it. Free camera. Right, there we go. Right. It's down here, isn't it? There we go. So, right, let's move that down to about there. Let's see if that is enough to stop that drift that we were getting fed up with. Back to game, resume. Right, okay. Yes, okay, right, it's now steady. Good, right, so I can actually fly and keep my ship out of the view. There we go. Right, there we are with an uninterrupted view of the fleet, which is awesome. Okay, and all I need to do is then pan slowly. Awesome, right, it's good to go. It's good to go. Okay. We're not going to have the Formidine drift. Yeah, no, we're going to get rid of that. Right, so how long is my, I've just got to load this up. How long is my my Blake 7 theme tune? So it is about, so if we want to be jumping out as it comes to its kind of conclusion, it's 2 minutes 24 seconds long. So I need to be doing that at about 22:07 and a bit. Right, okay then. So, are you set, commanders? Are you set? So I will start the music at 20. Actually, I need to be kind of in the cockpit here for that. So I will start the music at 21:07 and about 30 seconds. All right. At 21:09. You charge your frame shift drives, and at 21:10 you throttle up. Okay. That's the plan. We'll make it work. Okay, so 21:07, about a minute from now the music starts. All right, 21:09 charge your frame shift drive. 21:10 you do the jump. Okay, you do the jump. All right. Is everybody clear on the supper situation? Dear, so this is going to be fun. So this is I quite fancy being a bit mischievous to do this, because this is the this I feel like that Battlestar Galactica quote, you know, fleeing from the Cylon tyranny. I feel like fleeing from the FDev tyranny. The last lawmaster leaves a ragtag fugitive fleet on a lonely quest in search of a story. It's someone going to go. So it's going to work. It's going to work. Okay. Should you stay at the same speed? Yeah. So just wait. To be honest, all you need to do, you don't need to do the rolling start. Just charge your hyperspace drives on 21:09 and throttle up at 21:10 on the HUD. It is now time to play. It is now time to play the music. I will switch to camera view once I've started the music. So here we go. Right. Are you ready, my friends? Here we go. This is. I'm going to go mute. Here we go. That was epic. Well done, everybody. That looked awesome from my perspective. Fabulous stuff. I just love finishing up like that. It just, that hyperspace jump sequence is even better nowadays because of the coloured exhaust trails. It's really, really good. That's great fun. So for next week is the last. Okay, the next week is the last of the last of the Law Tour, the last of the Formidine Rift expedition, when we finally reach our destination. We will be doing that. Now we need to go out on a tune. Okay, now it's kind of a toss-up between Star Wars and Star Trek. I'm not quite sure which one to do, or any other suggestions that people have. So I will do my best to do a MIDI composition of of whatever. So let me know in the chat, what do you want for the final send-off, where we finally achieve our quest and get to the end of our expedition. So Stargate now. Stargate's not. Babylon 5 is a good suggestion. I'll see what I can find. UFO. Star Trek Voyager is not a bad idea, actually. Star Trek, because it's more exploration-y stuff. So yeah, that's quite good. XR5. 15 minutes after the stream, you can jump on the Absolution. That's quite good. Do If We All Die at the End. Voyager's not a bad one. Blade Runner, yeah. Blue Daniel, Pride of Valkyries. There's loads of suggestions. I vote Trek. A mashup between Star Wars and Star Trek. Hitchhiker's Guide. Red Dwarf. The Final Countdown. So many ideas. I quite like the idea of Star Trek Voyager, actually. That's I've just got off the top of my head. The Borg. To see what we can do. Ulysses 31, yeah. Oh, hang on, I've shut down me. I do like Ulysses. I was learning to play today, actually. Bob the Builder. I can probably play that, actually. I was working out today how to play Mysterious Cities of Gold, actually. That's quite cool. But Ulysses is... why isn't that working? Oh, it's because it's on audio. Hang on. There we go. That's Ulysses anyway. I can play it a bit better with some proper instruments, obviously. Maybe we could try that. Maybe we could do theme tunes I have loved from all space themes. Sort of mash-up thing going on. I have to wait and see what I can do. Make a poll of myself. Yeah, I could do that, couldn't I? And see what comes out at the top, and have some fun with that, because I have quite enjoyed doing. Oh, Starfleet, yeah. How's that one go? That's Starfleet. Full medley. Maybe I should do a full medley. Starfleet. I've been playing Mysterious Cities of Gold today as well, which has been quite fun. Which is there we go. Anyway, but I'll do it on MIDI because I can't really play this keyboard. It's too small. The Wombles. Yeah, the Wombles. The Wimbledon Common Good Arrive. Galaxy Quest, Orville. We got so many ideas. Sparrow Zarathustra as well. Yeah. Those things are good. So anyway, so that's where we go. Now we are heading. I was a bit remiss last week in not saying, look at that, deep space, we're in the void. Not saying where we were going. So I'm now on my own. Alone in space with no company. We are heading, so next week, be in the, we've got to get here, okay? Be in Cyradi. JX-F C0, okay, so that's where we've got to be at the end of next for next week's stream, which is the final stream, okay, of the Law Tour. Now, some of you will be asking, okay, well, what's happening after that then, Drew? The answer to that is for 2 weeks I'm going on holiday. So I won't be streaming for a couple of weeks, but after that. I've got a few ideas percolating because a few people said to me, "No, just keep streaming, keep talking about stuff." And I said, "Well, I haven't got any more lore to talk about, but we seem to have fun." Okay, so that's kind of the most important bit about the Elite community, is having some fun and enjoying ourselves and doing space stuff. Okay, so I do intend to keep going, and we'll see what other shenanigans we can get up to, hopefully with a purpose in mind. And if any new lore does turn up, then we're poised and ready to go, aren't we? So we can kind of do that. But for now, get to the Cyradi system JX-F C0 for next week for the culmination of the lore tour and the Formidine Rift expedition. Then there will be a 2-week hiatus, okay? And then after that, we'll see, okay? The stream will be back and we will do stuff, all right? And we'll see where we can get to. Yeah, there's always more stuff to talk about in Elite. You can never get to the bottom of it, so we can always talk about more stuff. There'll be more shenanigans, there'll be more music, there'll be more silly things in the game, yeah. We will see what we're going to do. But that was awesome. So yes, there will be a 2-week gap because I'm having some holiday. Taking some time. I've got my wife's birthday, got my son's birthday in that time, so I'm going to make sure we take a bit of family time. But we will be back after that, and I'll publicise it on the banner and Twitch and everything else, Twitter, etc., etc., etc. So see you there next week, my friends. Be good, fly safe, take absolute care of yourselves, yeah, we will continue on. The voyages will never stop. We will go boldly where other people have been before. And split infinitives and stuff. So yeah. So see you there next week for the final story, the Zurara, the final piece of lore in this tour after all these months. And have a good time. See you soon. Be good. Take absolute care of yourselves. Thank you very much for that awesome hyperspace jump. That was really, really cool. And yeah. So we will see you soon, Commanders. See you next week for the end of the Formidine Rift expedition. Carry on. Right on, Commanders. See you soon.